Breaking news from Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced that Canada has officially reached NATO's defense spending target of 2% of the country's GDP. The announcement was made during a press conference in Halifax on March 26, 2026. During the briefing, the Prime Minister also revealed a new investment of more than $3 billion for defense-related infrastructure in Atlantic Canada. Here is everything that was said during the announcement.
In 2014, Canada's defense spending had fallen to just 1% of our GDP. Our military infrastructure and equipment had aged, hindering our military readiness. And that's why just 6 weeks after forming government, we announced ambitious plans to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. Our core objective of that plan, not the only one, but a core objective, is to achieve NATO's 2% target this year. That's the highest level of defense spending relative to the size of our economy since the fall of the Berlin Wall. We embarked on this mission to protect Canadians, to defend our territory, to protect our borders, and to boost our sovereignty. Because nous sommes maîtres chez nous. We control our destiny. I am pleased to announce today that we have kept that ambitious promise. For the last 10 months, Canada's new government has been working with unprecedented speed and scale. In 10 months, we have invested over $60 billion in our defense and security. That's the largest year-on-year increase in defense investment in generations. And as a result of these efforts, this morning, NATO confirmed that Canada has achieved its 2% defense expenditure target, half a decade ahead of the original schedule. So the first time, as I said, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, we'll be spending that 2% of GDP on defense. Now, what is very encouraging is not just that Canadians recognize the need to reinforce our security, but Canadians are responding to our renewed commitment and to the call to serve, a call that the women and men here have already responded to. But since the summer of last year, since June, applications to join the Canadian Armed Forces are up 13%. Il faut le dire que l'objectif de 2% ne constitue pas un plafond pour les enfants.
Speaking to reporters in Halifax, Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that Canada has now reached the 2% defense spending benchmark required by NATO. The NATO alliance has long encouraged member countries to spend at least 2% of their gross domestic product on defense. According to the Prime Minister, Canada has now met that target. The announcement marks a significant milestone in Canada's defense policy and its commitments within the NATO alliance. Carney stated that the government has increased defense funding in order to strengthen military readiness, improve infrastructure, and support national security commitments. The announcement was made in front of reporters and media representatives during the official press conference. During the same briefing, the Prime Minister also announced more than $3 billion in funding for defense-related infrastructure projects across Atlantic Canada. The funding is expected to support a range of projects connected to Canada's military facilities and operations in the region. According to the announcement, the investment will focus on improving military bases, logistics infrastructure, and defense support facilities. Atlantic Canada plays an important role in the country's defense network due to its geographic location and access to the Atlantic Ocean. The region hosts several key military installations and naval operations. The new funding will be directed towards strengthening those facilities and expanding defense capabilities in the area. Officials stated that the funding will also support long-term modernization projects connected to Canada's defense strategy. After the announcement, Prime Minister Carney faced multiple questions from reporters at the press conference. Several journalists asked about the government's longer-term commitment to increasing defense spending even further. Earlier, the government had pledged to increase defense spending to 5% of Canada's GDP by the year 2035. Reporters asked how the government plans to reach that goal and what steps will be taken in the coming years. Questions also focused on funding strategies, future budgets, and how defense investments will be distributed across the country. The press conference included follow-up questions regarding timelines, implementation plans, and the role of Canada within NATO going forward. The Prime Minister responded to questions while outlining the government's current defense commitments and funding plans. After the announcement, Prime Minister Carney faced multiple questions from reporters at the press conference. Several journalists asked about the government's longer-term commitment to increasing defense spending even further. Earlier, the government had pledged to increase defense spending to 5% of Canada's GDP by the year 2035. Reporters asked how the government plans to reach that goal and what steps will be taken in the coming years. Questions also focused on funding strategies, future budgets, and how defense investments will be distributed across the country. The press conference included follow-up questions regarding timelines, implementation plans, and the role of Canada within NATO going forward. The Prime Minister responded to questions while outlining the government's current defense commitments and funding plans. The announcement in Halifax marks an important update in Canada's defense spending and NATO commitments. Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed that Canada has reached the 2% NATO defense spending target and announced over $3 billion in new defense infrastructure funding for Atlantic Canada. Reporters also questioned the government about its plan to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. More updates are expected as the government releases further details about future defense budgets and infrastructure projects. Stay tuned for more global political updates. What do you think about Canada reaching the 2% NATO defense spending target? Share your opinion in the comments and don't forget to like the video for more global political updates.